We got another guest on here. We're doing a cavalcade of SEC preview guests. We're happy to have on Michael Floyd. He's the VP of the Auburn Jungle Student Section. Welcome to the podcast, Michael.
Well, I am so excited, so honored you all have asked me to join your podcast. I consider it a blessing and a privilege to always talk about a school that I love so much, so very much.
Great, yeah. So I have a couple questions for you I wanted to ask just to start off. Like, what's your history with Auburn sports, with Auburn basketball, especially in particular, and how did you get involved with the student section organization?
Well, in order for me to answer that question, I got to start way from the very beginning. And just like growing up as an Auburn fan, that's all I knew, Unfortunately, my dad did not see the light like I did. So he is an Alabama fan. So he's still in the darkness. But my mother got a hold of me early. So I'm very grateful for that. Growing up and watching Auburn on TV, whether it was football, basketball, softball, baseball, whatever it was, always watching it and being energetic from my living room or my bedroom, just watching the game, exerting myself like I was there in real life, cheering them on, but instead I'm just sitting at a monitor in my room. And then, I get accepted into Auburn, one of a dream that I thought that could never happen, that became true. Got accepted into Auburn. And then, my freshman year, you had transfer quarterback Bo Nix. You had him beating Oregon in Texas. And then you had the Iron Bowl, and we rushed the field like, oh my goodness. And let alone that was the year after the 2019 Final Four run. So how I got started into with Auburn basketball, you're going to think I'm crazy, and rightfully so. It took lining up at like 3 a.m. on a Saturday morning for an 11 a.m. tip-off. And, being in that line so early, getting to meet so many great people who had the crazy tendency to get up at 3 a.m. just to line up for a game, whether it was raining, hot, or blistering cold outside. We did that. And then, that just trickled into me being involved. Obviously, my freshman year, which seems so long ago due to the COVID-19 pandemic, our freshman year, we had the first ever time College Game Day had ever came to Auburn Arena. I was a part of that. And, being a part of that, to beating LSU at home my freshman year, to beating Kentucky and Alabama at home my freshman year, it was a lot of excitement around the program. Obviously, 2020, which was my sophomore year, we were kind of disappointed in the way basketball season turned out, because not the way the team played, but the way, the ticketing system was done through the university. It was like a lottery. So I went from my freshman year going to almost every home game to my sophomore year attending only 4 home games. And I'm like, wow. And I'm like, so, it was very different. There wasn't a jungle technically. That happened. And then here we are my junior year. I was very honored when I was asked if I would serve as the vice president of the jungle. And now here we are today, getting ready to take on undefeated LSU team in the jungle.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I really feel bad for every one of us is looking at our lives during this pandemic and kind of like, woe is me. Like, I'm missing out on this and that. I'm missing on some Christmas stuff right now. I've missed out on different things in my life. You feel really bad for the high school kids and the college kids.
Right.
It's a very, I can do a lot of my adult stuff through my adult life. You have 4 or 5 years there to be in that student section, enjoy this. Same with high school kids with their proms and stuff. We look back and wonder how important that stuff really is, but you have one chance to do these things. I really feel bad that, you got this great run 2019, way better than anything me and Matt ever experienced. The idea of waiting at 3 a.m. We were in the Barbie era. So we just pulled up to the parking lot. I went to Auburn basketball games after the tip off and just walked right in at times. So the fact that you had to get up early is a testament to what Bruce has done. Another question I had for you here. So the jungle's getting a lot of attention. We love it. We love the setup where it's on camera. It's so great to hear all the announcers talk about how intense the jungle is. Yesterday, Will Wade was on a thing. and said how it's the biggest, baddest environment in SEC right now. So what I'd ask is, so we already know it's great. If you're the VP and you had something that you wanted to take this student section to the next level, something you want to tell the fans out there, even the alums or other students, what would you like suggest is the next way to make another tier, another kind of cheer you like, another kind of, how do we take this to another level?
Well, I'll start off by saying, Will Wade, please be ready because we're coming. We're coming loud. We're coming proud. So please be ready, Mr. Coach Will Wade. We're coming. We're coming. But if I can, that's also a tough question. And I love this podcast already because y'all ask the tough questions and I have to give the hard answers. I love that. But I will say this, now it's to the point to where it's not what the students can do, but it's what the fans can do now. And that's what'll make the jungle or an Auburn Arena even more hostile than it already is. Obviously, SEC play will start in next week against LSU. So hopefully that will be the true first sellout in Auburn Arena this year. But even when I was on the campus before the holiday break or Christmas break, um, it will be classified as a sellout, but there will be empty seats. And I was watching against Murray State. It was a pretty decent crowd, but you can still spot an empty seat here and there. And I don't know what to contribute to that. I just don't know if people are just sitting on their tickets or if they're just not coming or whatever the case may be. But the advice I want to give is if you can't make it to an Auburn basketball game, instead of, probably skyrocketing your price for resale, give them to an Auburn fan that so they can take your seat, so they can contribute to the noise factor inside Auburn Arena. And if we can get the adults to not act their age, like Bruce Pearl said in his press conference before Murray State, if we can get adults to not act their age during every single Auburn home basketball game, Auburn Arena will be more hostile than Jordan-Hare, Rupp Arena, and Coleman Coliseum put together. And that's just the truth. And they say, whoa, Jordan-Hare, you might want to pump the brakes. But I've always said this, the Auburn Arena atmosphere to me is almost like 10 times better than the Jordan-Hare atmosphere. And I saw us rush the field against Alabama. I really did. Now it might not match Jordan-Hare during the kick six, but post kick six, I will put Auburn Arena up there. But
But
go
if you're
ahead.
looking at environments around the SEC at this point, we feel like Auburn Arena is the jungle is the number one place to be.
Oh,
You
yeah.
you mentioned Coleman Coliseum and Rupp Arena, but really Rupp Arena doesn't get that. They're large and have a lot of alumni there, but you don't hear it's
Right.
that really intense of an atmosphere. So if you're looking like comparing Auburn and Jordan-Hare, is everyone knows like top 5 in the SEC atmosphere, but it moves around with Death Valley and different places. Auburn Arena, the
Right.
jungle, I think we're squarely at number 1. So I think you got a good point there that if you're doing it by that metric, the jungle is really peaked.
Oh, yes. And also it speaks to what Coach Bruce Pearl has done. To take you back to the year Coach Pearl was hired, he told us to buy our tickets early. And now the wait list to get season tickets for Auburn basketball is 3+ years out, if not 2+ years out. So, wow, wow. And people say, well, we need to add more. We need to build a bigger arena. No, we don't need to build a bigger arena because I love it the way it is. But it just speaks to a true testament to what Coach Pearl has done at Auburn. And if the fans cannot act their age for every home game, by gosh, we would be just a real force to reckon with.
Michael, I just want to point out, I was there from 2007 to 2012, and we had the same problem. The student section wasn't packed, but there were probably a few hundred of us who really cared. It wasn't on the level that it is now. And it was
Right.
even the years that ended up being pretty good, we still had that same problem with the alumni. And I think now being on the other side, like I see a little bit of that. I think there's you're just not in that place to just go crazy all the time when you go, but it's contagious. And I think if you get a few people in every section to kind of buy into that, I really think there is a whole other level, like you said, that this arena can go to. I wouldn't change a thing. I think it's built perfectly. I think it lends itself to noise and that environment.
I agree.
And the the alumni just have to be better, and it is getting better slowly, but
Right.
it can get a lot better. So I just want to support that as a former. It wasn't called the Jungle back then, but support it as a.
But I do want to add this to what Matthew was saying. In 2000, gosh, it seems like forever ago, but when Auburn clinched the SEC regular season title, I happened to be in a game against South Carolina. I think I was like 2017, 18, or 18, 19, somewhere like that. When Auburn clinched the SEC regular season title against South Carolina, they had confetti fall from the rafters because they were celebrating the monument, that big old monumental occasion. But my freshman year, which was probably almost 3 to 4 years, or at least 3+ years after I got there, when it gets loud in that arena, the arena shakes and confetti still falls from the rafters.
That's great. That's the kind of stuff we had you on for, Michael. That will be I think that's going to be the reference we'll start using is when the crowd gets wild, look out for the confetti,
Yes, it falls, and you're looking at it, you're like, where's confetti coming from? Oh my goodness, that's the same confetti that's stuck up there. And so it shows that, one, there's still confetti in the rafters that they have not cleaned up, and two, that when the building shakes, the building shakes. That's how crazy it gets in there. So
and what a great metaphor for what Bruce has built too, that we had that
right.
first SEC with the confetti. And when we have that atmosphere rocking and these teams playing great, there's still this like right. That's like the team that started it. You still see the elements of the team that started it all with the confetti. You like a little blessing. The Angels or the Auburn Angels are watching down on you. That's great. I love to hear that. Part of the reason we wanted you on too is to kind of get, me and Matt are probably 7, 8, 9, 10 years out even from being students. I live in New York, Matt lives in Nashville. We just don't get to see that everyday atmosphere with Auburn basketball. And I'm just curious now as a student, how hard it is to get tickets and kind of like what on game day, like I said, when I was there, you could pull up to the parking lot, park, walk in 5 minutes after tip, and it wasn't even a big deal. Now you're talking about how you waited for a game at 3 a.m. Like, what's it like on the game day when people are getting excited? What's it like? I see Bruce talking outside of the student section, like yelling at the crowd. Like, give us a little sense of what it's like on a game day.
And and you're right. And I'm going to say this because it's something I love about Auburn, that some schools within the SEC do this, and I'm glad Auburn does not. That's what makes the Jungle or one of a kind. Auburn basketball is not a ticketed sport. I'm pretty sure it's always been like that. But the fact that now, since basketball is becoming a hot commodity within the student body, and it's still not a ticketed sport, it just really adds another element of people. Wow, you have to line up early because you don't have a ticket. The student section only sits 2,100, and once that 2,100 is filled, they send students up to the standing room only. And when the Kentuckys and the Alabamas and the Arkansas come to town and Tennessee come to town, standing room is sold out. So the students they have nowhere to go. So they have to be turned away, unfortunately. But what it is about the Jungle, you said about parking, unless you park a half a mile away, you will not be parking in the arena lot. I can tell you that. Because the arena lot is now reserved. It's now reserved parking, but you could park in the Coliseum lot and or the Village lot. But getting in line, you create friendships. I created friends who have graduated. Some are still at Auburn that I still talk to almost every other day. So that's an opportunity that I'm grateful for lining up early. My freshman year, and even though I'm a junior now, and I'm talking about my freshman year, that's because that's the last time we had a full active Jungle was my freshman year. But I remember my freshman year, the day the Friday, Auburn had a game the Friday before the football team hosted Georgia. Obviously, the football team did fall short by a touchdown in that game, but the Friday before that, Auburn had a game, and Coach Malzahn came in the student section. He had free Domino's pizzas for the students. That was one experience my freshman year. Bruce Pearl coming out with Dunkin' Donuts and bagels, and then Jack's biscuits. I mean, Bruce fed us a lot of good food on a Saturday morning, especially for a bunch of college students up at 3 a.m. on a Saturday morning. Who knows what they did on a Friday night, but they got up early to line up for a basketball game. And then also going into the jungle, you have people when the doors open, you have people rush down the stairs to get their seats because it's first come, first serve. You might sit close to the court this game, but you might sit up on higher up or not even in the same area as you did for the second game. That's how a hot commodity basketball is becoming. And then now you see it trending. Unfortunately, you see it trending when we lose a football game or something, but we're a basketball school. And Bruce Pearl has taken that in. We are a basketball school, and now we've evolved it into an everything because we are an everything school. Football might have a down year sometimes, but all sports at Auburn, they succeed and go above and beyond. So the jungle is just something that students can really just embrace. If you want a midday study break or weekend plans, you can go to an Auburn basketball game. And then when you have the players that we have, it makes it extremely fun to watch. When you have a potential, I don't care what the board say, Jabari should be the number one pick in the draft. I mean, it's just unquestionable. I mean, just totally unquestionable. But when you have a Jabari Smith, and all those other players, you want to go support those guys. You really do.
It's great to hear the passion here. I love hearing the fans' perspective here. That meets me and Matt too's fans' perspective, but it's even more great to hear a student so passionate about Auburn basketball. And you're talking about the players, which is a great lead way into my next question. Cardwell is huge on social media, on the court. People love the passion. People love these players. When we were in school, I was a freshman. The year Cam Newton was there. He was my next door neighbor, actually, in an apartment complex. But people went nuts. He was a celebrity on campus. People were trying to do anything they could to touch his doorknob or take a picture. What's it like on campus right now with these guys? Is Cardwell the most popular guy on campus of any sport? Is the basketball team eclipse the football team? What's it like for these guys?
The fact that you were next door neighbors to Cam Newton, I'm just extremely jealous right now. And even though when Cam Newton, when you was in college, I was still in elementary school. But oh my goodness, that's awesome. That is really awesome. Now that's something I will brag about at my job. I don't know who your college roommate was or your next door neighbor was, but mine was Cam Newton. And he won a Heisman Trophy and a championship.
You saw how quickly he worked that into his question, right, Mike?
Yeah.
Still doing that 10 years later. So yeah, that doesn't change.
That's when you turn 80 or 90, 100, I remember when I was next door neighbors with Cam Newton. He might not remember me, but I remember him. That's how it goes. I love it, Jackson. I love it.
What are these guys like on campus? Are these big time celebrities now? Another weird connection I had was a old player named Rob Chubb, and he sat next to me in geography class, but no one cared. He was the great white hope at one point when he was on there. But if Walker Kessler sat next to me in geography class now, it'd be the biggest stir ever. I'd have friends saying, "Let me sit in for geography class for you and take your homework."
I will say this. I think now we're getting to the point in age where on a normal day, they're students. They're students who have to walk in that big, tall, crazy building we call the Haley Center. They're students that have to walk inside the student center and go to class in Tichenor or in Foy or wherever they have to go. You might have a fanboy or a fangirl every once in a while who might just go crazy, oh my God, Jabari Smith is in my class. Oh, no way. But obviously when game days come, when they're playing, perhaps one of the number 2 team in the country or a ranked opponent, they're the big stuff. They're the man. They're the men on campus. They're the women on campus that are about to get ready to take down this Goliath. But and to your question about Dylan Carter, I just love that dude. That dude was made for the jungle, and the jungle was made for him. I think Dylan Cartwell's fandom or stardom or road to fame took off when he went shirtless in Jordan Hare this year. Just an unbelievable moment.
You hope, clearly Bruce Pearl's rubbing off on him.
Yes.
Their personalities fit very well. You hope
extremely
that
well.
You hope that we look back one day and maybe Cardwell goes off and plays in the NBA and has an amazing career and things. But you also hope that maybe one day he's the kind of guy that you could come back and have him as a coach one day. The kind of guy that sticks around Auburn and really embraces it. You see it all the time, almost to a fault, how much we hire former players and everything. So you love when a kid embraces it. I'm sure you feel this way, Michael, and I know Matt feels this way, that if we were on campus, that's the kind of way we would want to embrace it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But,
another question.
Dylan Cardwell. Oh, no. Well, I just want to say this. But I would say, yes, Dylan Cardwell is very, he's very interactive. He's very engaging. He's the type of person that feeds off the energy off the crowd. And that goes back to one of the original questions you asked, which you were saying, what could take the jungle to the next level, if the adults or the alumni would not act their age and, act like they're in the jungle, they're in their cushioned seats and whatnot. Man, that place would be electric. The players will love it. And, but Dylan Cardwell is a great player. And I'm glad he's wearing the orange and the blue.
Y'all hear us, olds. If you're over 40 listening to this podcast, that not that me and Matt won't be over 40 before too long one day, but we're calling you out. You got to get electric. Don't worry about whoever's caught. Like, there's always going to be a Scrooge in your section or a Grinch or whatever that's going to be annoying. But if everybody else is going nuts, you can go nuts. You have full social and like peer pressure to get nuts out there. Another one.
I have a prediction. I do think this team has kind of captured people's attention. And if you look historically at Auburn basketball, the crowd will be there if it's kind of that moment. Like, I remember growing up as a kid, the 1999-2000 team that was a number 1 seed nationally. I mean, they were number 1 in the country at one point. Beard Eves was nuts, and it wasn't just the students when it got to that point. So I'm optimistic, at least, that there will be, I think, starting out with this huge LSU game, like you mentioned, Michael, like, I hope and kind of expect that there's going to be, it's going to go to a different level as we get into SEC play. Sorry, Jackson, go ahead.
Yeah, I just, I was going to ask too, you got these big games coming up. We got LSU coming up. It's going to be the biggest game we've played so far this year. What game, me and Matt have our own thoughts, and alums have their own thoughts, and people from all over watching TV have their own thoughts on what teams we want to beat the worst and where we are in the SEC play. As a fan, as the students, what does it feel like as the game that's circled? Is there a certain game that every student's talking about that weekend when this team comes to town? Everyone, my friends are going to come. We're going to have parties. Like, what is the game this year that's really circled on everyone's calendar?
I want to tell you this. There are probably a bunch of games that are probably circling on everybody's calendar. You do have some big games in Auburn Arena this year. But one that really just sticks out that we'll probably talk about now is because of the way their basketball program is going, has to be the Alabama Crimson Tide. On that same dreaded day that they beat Georgia in the SEC championship, that night, their basketball team beat Gonzaga, however in the world you want to say it, that team up there in Washington State. But they beat them, and to myself, I'm like, oh my goodness, when Auburn plays Alabama, this is going to be one of the greatest meetings in the whole series, because you have NBA talent versus potential NBA talent, and you have, a young upcoming Nate Oates and a Bruce Pearl, so that is one that'll have really Auburn Arena in a frenzy, but shame on the SEC, and I'll repeat this, shame on the SEC for scheduling that game on a Tuesday night at 8 o'clock. I don't know what you were thinking. But to schedule that game on a Tuesday night at 8 o'clock, that's wrong. Absolutely wrong.
Not
That
only
should have been a Saturday game.
not only do they have that on not only do they have that on Tuesday, which really sucks because you're still probably going to see a couple empty seats here and there, feel that just can't make it, which will be super frustrating. But on top of that, for this LSU Auburn game, a top 15, I think, maybe top 20 ranked matchup on ESPNU. Come on, they have like
ESPNU.
Missouri, Kentucky, I think, on ESPN2, and a couple others. Like, how did we end up on ESPNU? Like, can you imagine in previous years, Matt, that we have a ranked matchup in Auburn and we can't even get it on like a regular cable package? It's crazy.
Right.
But that's good to hear. Fans are getting excited for the Alabama game.
Oh yeah.
I hope that everybody, I'm sure it'll get hype on even on that Tuesday. It's crazy. I hate
Right.
that Alabama's gotten where they've gotten,
Oh yeah, and I will say this, I pointed out the Alabama game, but in years past, Tennessee has become one of our biggest basketball rivals. Because we have Bruce Pearl, and now they have Justin Powell, so that'll be a big one. But unfortunately, that's in Rocky Top. I'll be going to that game. Tickets already secured. But Matthew, I hope to see you there at Rocky Top when we go.
I'm going.
That was part of what Matt wanted me to ask you. I didn't have it on my list, but people go to away football games, and me and Matt have done that, and you have a really great time at away football games because there's some sort of like almost like the 300 Spartans kind of atmosphere. Like Auburn always has an Auburn family. Like if you see another Auburn person out on the streets of a different city, you War Eagle, you really feel like a real connection to that person. When you go to away games, you really feel like you do this cool like merge with these Auburn fans. You're standing together in this little section at Texas A&M or wherever. So we kind of wanted to ask, like, are people starting, like, if it's $200 to get into Auburn Arena for a game, are people going to Athens for a cheaper ticket to watch Auburn UGA? Are they going to Knoxville? Like, what are your away plans? And do you hear a lot of students making those road trips?
Jackson, you hit the hammer on the head, or the nail on the head. That's how they say. You hit the nail on the head, Jackson, right there. Because tickets are so just out of pocket for a basketball game, Auburn fans are traveling. I guess I'll go ahead and break the news on here. We're going to the Jungle social media team is about to break it on social media in a couple minutes of us, doing this podcast. But I guess I'll go ahead and give you inside scoop. The Auburn Jungle is going to take over Coleman Coliseum on January the 11th. We're encouraging students, we're encouraging fans to go on StubHub, the official secondary ticket location of the Auburn Tigers. We're encouraging fans and alumni and students to go on there and but if you have the means to try and make that trip, please go. Because Auburn University doesn't resume classes to January the 12th, which is the Wednesday after that Tuesday. So we're encouraging students to go to Tuscaloosa, spend the whole day there. They might be having a national championship parade there that day. We don't know yet. Hopefully not. But we're invading Coleman Coliseum. And then also, if you look on StubHub, you'll see cheap tickets for Ole Miss, cheap tickets for Georgia. And because it's since Auburn Arena is such a hot commodity, it is kind of more fun and cheaper to go on the road. And I think Rick Pearl did an interview with Auburn Live of Arm 3 Sports saying, he loves road wins because he goes into sometimes hostile environments and take over. He like he said, he's a hater. He's just a hater. So just looking forward to that.
Yeah, I'm not surprised that would happen because that's what everybody's doing. I mean, that's what I'm doing. I live in Nashville. I'm planning to go to maybe Athens, maybe Knoxville. I want to come to Auburn too. And I'm glad to hear that students and that you guys as an organization are encouraging that, because those really are some of the best times. You go in and you feel, I've always said Auburn family, sometimes we have our disagreements, we have our, opinions, but I'll put our road fans in football and now in basketball, obviously, like I'll put the people that travel on the road against anybody of any fan base.
Right.
Those
exactly.
people are fantastic. They're committed. They're in, they make the trip, even if maybe the team isn't expected to win. Like I like those. that crew. So I'm glad that's happening in basketball.
And I'm going to tell you this, Matthew. An away basketball ticket is not only cheaper than a home men's basketball ticket, but it's cheaper than a home football or away football ticket as well.
Yep.
So, it's cheap fun, and this is cheap fun to go watch a potential top 10 team play. That's very rare. When Duke goes on the road, home or away, their tickets are through the roof. They're through the roof.
Yeah.
So, so that's fun. But, and if they have the means, of all means necessary, if you have the funds, means, and the time, please go support the Tigers on the road.
I lost power briefly, but that's why we have two co-hosts to continue the podcast there. I'm back. I'm glad y'all continued that while I was gone. My last one here, which has been a pleasure talking to you, man. It's been great to hear the passion, and we love to hear the student stuff. We heard you talk to the women's basketball team recently. Like, how did that come about? And just, you've gotten so involved with all the student section stuff and everything. Like, what's that been like? How did you get connected with the women's basketball team and different sports in general?
Well, when I'm a huge Gus Malzahn supporter, and I didn't say women's basketball. I want to say this because it's going to lead into my next segue. I'm a huge Gus Malzahn supporter. I really appreciate him. And he has this saying that use your influence in a positive way. And when I was named, and when I was gifted the title of the Jungle Vice President, I wanted to make sure that I used my influence in a positive way. Women's basketball has not been in the forefront of Auburn athletics in recent years, and if you look at the past of Auburn women's basketball under Coach Joe Champy, you have numerous NCAA tournament appearances. You have 3 NCAA Final Four appearances. I think you have one of those Final Four became national championship appearances. So, SEC tournament championship victories and appearances. So, Auburn women's basketball is a very storied program, and we've been lacking in the forefront of Auburn women's basketball. When Neil Fortner was at Auburn, she retired saying, she wanted to try something new. Then she turns around and goes to Georgia Tech, which makes me believe, well, what was the problem, Neil? What was the problem? But this year, Auburn women's basketball went into Atlanta, Georgia, went to Neil Fortner's home court at Georgia Tech, and beat her team, and they were ranked number 16 in the country at the time. A huge win for Coach Johnny Harris and company. Last year, this team, I think, only won about 5 games and went winless in the SEC, and which led to the parting of ways between Coach Floyd and Auburn. And Alan Green made another splash hire in 1 year after hiring Brian Harsin. He went and he got Johnny Harris from Texas. Johnny Harris is a well-known recruiter. She was at Texas A&M during their glory days, Mississippi State at their glory days, rebuilt the Mississippi State program with Vic Schaefer, who is now in the rebuilding process at Texas, and took Texas, and she helped Vic Schaefer take Texas to an Elite Eight, I think an Elite Eight appearance last year. So Coach Johnny Harris is the right woman to right the ship of Auburn women's basketball and take us back to those stories days. So, and I was honored to speak. That was my second time speaking. I got to speak to them during their fall camp, which was practices. Then I got to do the pregame speech against the University of North Florida when they played North Florida. And here's what I told them. I said, what is your goal? I said, basketball, just like life. You set goals and you shoot for them. You aim and you shoot for them. I'm like, what is your goal? What is your goal here for the women's basketball program? What is your goal for this game? Is it more rebounds than the last game? Is it more points than the last game? What is your goal? And the last thing I told them was, play for your families, play for your teammates, play for your coaches, but most of all, play for that school that is etched in your jersey. and what's etched in your jersey is Auburn. Play for Auburn. The Auburn family is something that is so broad and so wide. And we say, Auburn is a family. I think if people think it's just this yada yada cliche saying, it might be a saying to an Alabama or a Kentucky fan or a Tennessee fan or a Georgia fan. But for Auburn, the Auburn family is exactly what it is. It's a family that runs deep and runs wide, and wherever you are, there's the Auburn family. So women's basketball is on the way up. They signed the top 25 recruiting class for next year. And this is only John Harris's first year, and she's already signed the top 25 recruiting class. So that speaks volume of her and her staff. And if I can tell the fans that listen to this great podcast something, while you're investing in men's basketball, also invest into women's basketball. If we give Johnny Harris the same support we gave Bruce Pearl, oh my goodness, imagine the year Auburn can have two teams in the Sweet 16, in the Elite Eight, or the Final Four, all at the same time. What a wonderful time that'll be at Auburn. But women's basketball, it's an uphill battle. I'm not going to say it's not an uphill battle. It's an uphill battle. They have SEC play coming up. Matter of fact, they play Kentucky in Auburn Arena the day after Auburn hosts LSU. So if you're still in town, tickets. Now, I will say this, and I'm not trying to downgrade the program. Tickets are relatively on the cheap side now. That is cheap fun right now, but it's cheap fun while supporting the Tigers of the Auburn women's basketball program. So women's basketball is up on the rise, and I'm glad to have Coach Johnny Harris wearing the orange and blue as well.
And it's great to have you on. It's really great to hear the students still embracing the Auburn family. Yeah, I think you feel it while you're there amongst all the Auburn people. When you leave, you feel it even more, I think, when you move to a different city and you embrace the alumni organizations and you run into different Auburn people. There's something about, you talked about the family. Some other schools call it nations, Tennessee Nation or Bama Nation or different things like that. And that's what the difference really feels like. They kind of treated this like a conquering kind of like, yeah, sure, we're in the same like district or whatever, but at Auburn, you really feel, and maybe it's like a kind of thing of being the other school in the state and just feeling like most people that are Auburn fans, like 90% of people that are Auburn fans have some sort of real connection to Auburn. They went there.
Oh yeah.
Parents went there or something that really creates a real strong connection that other people don't have. When I see an Auburn hat on the street, I can go ahead and assume they also went to Auburn and they probably know somebody I know. And it's a real like connection. I'm sure Alabama fans see an Alabama hat in the street and you got to just wonder, do I even talk to this guy? Like he's just probably picked up the hat at a gas station, like, do I even want to engage in this situation? I there's almost never in my whole fandom have I ever been like ashamed of another Auburn fan at some situation. I have to think a lot of fan bases have to deal with a huge portion of their fan base just being embarrassing and not the kind of people you want to deal with. It's just not the same with Auburn. I was going to give Matt like one opportunity here if you had any good questions for him or anything.
I don't have a question. I just want to say, make sure you relay to current students in the jungle that there's a whole multiple generations of people who love what y'all are doing and enjoy watching it every night. And just to keep up that energy, we're kind of jealous a little bit, but we're kind of living vicariously through you guys. And just make every game count. And hope you guys will give every team that walks into that arena a hard time for the rest of this SEC season.
Well, Michael, we might have to have you back on at some point and get that fan perspective. We'll have to get maybe after we'll talk more about it, but maybe after one of these big games, we can get a phone call in or something to get the live reaction from the actual jungle to talk to the Auburn Jungle podcast.
Oh yes, and thank y'all so much. The Auburn Jungle podcast is in the name. It's in the name, and I love it. I love it. Well, once again, guys, thank you all so much for really having me on. And whenever this podcast is published, I do want to wish every person of the Auburn family a wonderful Merry Christmas and a very blessed and prosperous New Year. I'm the 2022 is the year of the Auburn Tigers. Mark my words. 2022 is the year of the Auburn Tigers. And we're going to see it and it starts right here with Auburn men's basketball. War Eagle, guys, and thank y'all for having me on.
War Eagle, Michael.
There you go, Michael. Thank you.